Hey there, folks. Welcome back to the Overflow. My name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, live from the Hatmobile.
And we are back once again to answer any and all questions that we were unable to get to with the last couple of podcasts. We appreciate everybody stopping by on the channel. And once again, just as a reminder, all the podcasts will be on this channel going forward. So come back every week. We'll be here for you, to say the least. So let's go ahead and get down to it. Hatman, as always, I let you choose politics or entertainment.
I think I chose politics the last couple of overflows, so let's go entertainment this time. Mix things up a little.
Sounds good to me. Let me see here if we missed any from the Twitter. Entertainment-wise, we did not. All right. So
okay.
let's go ahead and see what we got here. So Jacqueline Inman asks, why do we think games journalism went against gamers? And what do we think is going to happen to game journalism in the next 5 years? Well, the turning against them was completely ideological.
Yeah, it was a gradual shift. It was they didn't like the culture or gamer culture really, and just started to despise that, and by extension anyone who identified with the label of gamer. I mean, you can actually look back as early as like 2011 in some cases where folks like Leah Alexander were actually putting out articles talking about, you know, how despicable the term gamer is because of the associations with it.
Yeah, there was an enmity that was sort of lingering amongst games journalists at the time from when I was writing back around that time. There, you know, because there was this feeling among people that the gamer culture was inherently lowbrow and just kind of brain dead, because there was some weird shit that went on. I mean, if you were a game reviewer and you gave somebody a review, or you gave a game a review and it was lower than what they were expecting, they would bombard you with nasty comments. And it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me or to anybody else in the press at the time. So, needless to say, it was it was something that had been dwelling there for a long time. But I think that once politics sort of shifted to where, you know, you go from just disagreeing with somebody to, okay, the world is supposedly changing, ergo everything needs to change with it. That's when the pushes started against gamers themselves. You know, guys like Jim Sterling and others never really liked gamers. Honestly, like, they've always hated you, to be honest with you. You know, they'll tell you the opposite, but they've always seen John and Jane Q video game player as sort of the scum of the earth in a lot of ways, or at least beneath them somehow, as if Jeff Gertzman, of all people, really stands above the rest of the world as some sort of world-class intellect. I don't think so. So there are no world-class intellects in game journalism. There are zero.
No.
I would be genuinely surprised if there was a game journalist out there these days who has an IQ above 115. I'd be absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
Because some of them are okay writers, but just because you have a decent grasp of grammar does not mean that you're intelligent, you know, or you possess the ability to even use logic very well, which a lot of them don't. So
a lot of them think they're like really great with their nuanced critiques, quote unquote, of video games and their reviews, and literally it's just spouting political nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even... You can barely call it a critique when it's just a regurgitation of a platform.
Pretty much. And that's the basically the long and short of it. So I place the blame just squarely at the feet of progressivism, in the same way that I do with comic books these days too. Is it's Hatman and I have been talking about this, is like, because we were both involved with Gamergate on different levels, and then now we're embroiled in this Comicsgate thing. So our it just repeats itself over and over and over. In 2 years there's gonna be like Moviegate, and Hatman and I are probably gonna be in the middle of that too.
Yeah.
But needless to say, there is a, how do I put this? There is an ideological issue there that immediately conflicts with how John or Jane Q. Public decides to live their life. So, yeah, it was always there. I said back in 2011, 2012 that this will happen, that there will inevitably be a day where game journalists will turn on their audiences and their audiences will just check out. And I told Angry Joe that. And I was right. Alright, Matchstick7886 asks the following. I'm getting into Warhammer 40k. Which edition and Space Marine Legion would you recommend, and who are your favorite factions and sub-factions? So, I couldn't tell you what edition to get in because I've never played the tabletop version. I just know quite a bit about the lore, and I love the video games. And I am a Black Templar for life.
Yep. That's the way to go. Also, I haven't played the tabletop, but I've got a buddy who plays it a ton and has an entire room of his house dedicated to all of his miniatures. But I barely play tabletop as it is anyway.
Yeah, sadly, I just don't have the time for it. And when it comes to Warhammer, the money.
Yep. That, and I could not. Oh my god. Painting miniatures is. Painting really anything is painful for me because I am like so meticulous about it. No.
All right.
I'm not that patient.
Damien X247 wants to know, do we think there will be a level in Doom Eternal where Doom Guy ends up in London and winds up with a Lancaster quad-barrel shotgun?
I don't know.
That'd be interesting, but I don't think so.
I don't know if he'll end up really going to any sort of, like, locations that we would recognize. Be interesting, but I don't really know.
Personally, I would just like for there to be a section where Texas is mentioned, and it's like the only state that's actually got no problems. Everybody in the streets is blowing apart demons, like, oh, this is just Tuesday for us.
It's like Texas naturally had the most shotguns, so they lived.
Alright, and then Crystal Wing 2149 asks, when SJW, Marvel, and DC finally die, do we think it's important to remember the era so its mistakes are not repeated and to serve as a warning to future comic companies?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. Anything that goes wrong should always be remembered. You don't want to just bury it. You want to admit to what happened and say, we screwed up.
Cough, cough, Ultimate Marvel.
Specifically Ultimatum.
Oh, dear Lord.
Anything, or really anything Jeff Loeb and the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, just the super edgy. I mean, like, that was basically the dying breath of, like, the 90s edgy comics. Like, that was Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, the Ultimates kind of felt like Marvel does Image in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really, really did. And it was just so beyond screwed up for what it was trying to be anyway.
Yeah, but there were still some really solid books that came out of it at the start.
Yeah.
I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man was probably was Bendis at his best.
Yeah.
Then after that, you have who else? And then you have the Ultimates and Ultimate X-Men, both written by Mark Miller. I'm not. One second.
Plus,
Thank you. I'm not usually a big Mark Miller fan, but those are phenomenal work. You know, and then when Ultimatum came around, and Jeff Loeb did Ultimates 3, like that really was the death knell, because Ultimate X-Men, and stuff like that were obviously edgy, but like Ultimates 3 was like turbo edge. It's like Jeff Loeb is like, yeah, he comes back to Marvel after writing a horrendous Superman run, and he's like, yeah, I'm really excited to be back here, and you know, let's go ahead and do this, and everything he touched turned to shit.
it's just I think back to Ultimates, and I can't help but think like that's what somebody who was really, really into Game of Thrones would write for Marvel, thinking it's the greatest thing ever.
Oddly enough, predating Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, predating at least the TV show.
Yeah.
The books have been around for a while.
But the weird thing about it is that after Ultimatum, the books picked back up again and got a lot better, especially Ultimates, Ultimate Comics Ultimates, which was written by Jonathan Hickman.
Mm-hmm.
And was what really started, that and Brian Michael Bendis in Ultimate End created a new villain for them called the Master, because they killed off Dr. Doom in Ultimatum. And the Master was none other than an evil Reed Richards. And if just my recommendation for those of you out playing the home game, Ultimate Comics Ultimates, written by all of Hickman's stuff that features the Master as the villain, is fucking brilliant. And you definitely should. Hickman is like the one writer that I know he's doing East of West, and he's really enjoying himself back on independent stuff, but I would really, really like to see him do a major franchise again. I'd love to see Hickman on Iron Man. That'd be
interesting.
That would be insane. Hickman on Iron Man, or Hickman on Venom, I think would be really intriguing. Donny Cates is doing a really good job, so I wouldn't say like, oh, kick out Donny Cates, but he is doing a, Hickman, I think, would be Hickman is such a good sci-fi writer that it's insane. So, all right, that's it for entertainment. And for those of you at home, you also get some comic recommendations from me. And we've got sort of a bridging question here as we go into politics, and then we'll hit the Twitter questions. Can politics mix well with art?
Yes.
They can, absolutely. And this is something...
Depends on how you do it.
Yeah, it's all in the execution. This is sort of the big argument between Comicsgate and the anti-Comicsgate group, is that Anti says, yes, politics can mix well with art. And how Hatman and I just answered it is the argument from Comicsgate. Yes, you can do that, absolutely. But it depends on your execution. It depends on how well you can do it. And depends on what the message is. And I think that really, if your message is insane, people aren't going to resonate with it. It's why people hated Nick Spencer's Captain America. Mm-hmm. It was, his Sam Wilson Captain America was White Guilt the comic. And then Steve Rogers' Captain America was, your heroes are all Nazis.
What was the one with Trump as MODOK? That wasn't a Cap comic, was it?
That was Spider-Gwen Annual, #1.
Oh, God.
Yep. But when you look at those messages, and then you look at the things that are actually going on, you look at reality, you're like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Mm-hmm. None of this makes any sense. So, and that's the problem. And you switch that with something like V for Vendetta. What's the message of V for Vendetta? Well, it's sort of a pro-anarchist message, but it is that fascism is bad. It's a really
it's a political message that we, at least as far as like the pro-anarchy message, that we would disagree with naturally, but we still admire it because it's still a good story at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I mean, you can put controversial political messages, or just, you know, be political with your story and still like make it a good story, like a good character building story. Like the example that I like to bring up is I'm gonna forget the damn issue number, but the Green Lantern story, where he's asked, you know, why didn't you ever care about the black skins? And you've got Green Arrow basically, you know, admonishing the entire Green Lantern Corps for not giving a fuck about, you know, injustices as far as like social injustices. And that's what, the 1970s?
Something like that.
Yeah, like that's pretty damn on the nose, yes, but the way it was told was still good. Like it's one of those things where, yeah, it does kind of punch you in the nose with the message, but at least everything else surrounding it is not a pile of shit. It's not a turd covered in gold, as it were. Or a nugget of gold covered in turds. I don't fucking know. I can't analogy right now.
Everything that I've heard about that particular comic was that it was really, really heavy-handed. I've never read that particular one.
It was, but
it's Green Lantern and Green Arrow, Volume 1, number 76, from what I'm reading here.
Yes, there we go.
And,
yeah, it was heavy-handed, but it worked. Like, it made sense. It wasn't just politics for the sake of politics. I mean, you got, like, the reason why I think it works so well is because you've got a natural conservative with Hal Jordan, and you've got a natural liberal with Oliver Queen. Or Oliver Queen. Whatever.
Well, there's a problem with this, and
I'm fucking sure is.
Okay, Hatman, you kind of losing you here.
Oh hell.
Oh, there we go. Now you're back. Okay. So sorry, part of that got robo called out. So let's backtrack something though, because I want to read a counterpoint that I just looked up from Grant Morrison about this particular issue. Apparently, that I'm reading on Comic Vine. It says here, in any real world where the laws of physics and some interstellar impartial judiciary permitted his existence, Green Lantern's response would have been all our responses to the same accusation. I've been saving the entire Earth and every living thing on it, regardless of race, color, political affiliation, or species, since Green Lantern issue number 1. That's apparently Grant Morrison saying that, and I agree with it. And that's part of the problem, is like the idea that Captain America was always a Nazi. So like, are you fucking serious?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my biggest problem. It's like they save people. End of discussion. Like there's, and if you're going to integrate politics again, like I said, it's got to be some sort of a unifying message that everyone can gravitate onto. With V for Vendetta, fascism is bad, easy to gravitate onto. X-Men, God loves, man kills. Racism is bad. That, you know, that's something that everyone can latch onto. But if you do it in such a ham-fisted manner, like Gabby Rivera would tell you that the point of the kissing scene in the first issue of America Chavez was to say that equality is a good thing. okay, I agree with that statement, except for the simple fact that it's two women kissing with a giant fucking rainbow flag waving behind them. It's like,
Yeah,
again, like I said in that video, all you need is Deadpool to come in off frame, given the deuces, saying, "Don't forget, they're lesbians," and that's the only way it could get more ham-fisted than it was. And that generally is the issue, is that if you are beating your audience over the head with the message, it's not storytelling anymore, it's evangelizing. And not everybody wants to be evangelized to. So
I still think you can tell a story that is rather heavy-handed with its politics, as long as that does not take away from the rest of the story.
yeah,
that's why I bring up the Green Lantern example.
yeah. Well, it's all about taking in context and tone. Really, are your two best options. If you can put it in a context that people can really enjoy, then or people can understand, then you're usually golden. And if you're not trying to beat somebody over the head with it, if your priority is to just tell an interesting story, then you're in good shape. But if you're not doing that, because Nick Spencer clearly was not, and many other people simply have not in the past, then people are going to hate it, and for good reason.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to some stuff that we missed on, that we were not able to do on the Twitter. Duke of Tumwater had two for us. He says, which political figurehead, if any, was the most important in shaping our political beliefs? You know, I would say the writer who made me more conservative, or at least made me despise anything that comes remotely to totalitarianism, was George Orwell.
Mm.
That would probably be my pick. And oddly enough, he's a socialist. Or was a socialist. But he also... What's funny is that he... I remember he had admitted in one of his books that socialism would be a prime key for people basically seizing power over the people. And oddly enough, he wrote, in my opinion, two of the best critiques of those types of governments. And basically the question that should be checked when anybody looks at government is my government turning too much towards 1984 or Animal Farm? If the answer is yes, then you know that's you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Other than that, I would say just it's kind of interesting because dystopian fiction in a lot of ways has sort of, you know, reinforced those beliefs for me. Like when I used to be of the thought that technocracy and technocrats were you know, had an interesting idea but probably would never work in practicality, or in any sort of practical scenario. And then I read Brave New World. I'm like, this will never fucking work, and I do not want a technocracy in this freaking world. This is exactly what we're gonna get, is Brave New World.
Told you.
Yeah, it's like, fuck that. I do not want to turn a government over to a bunch of people who are purely scientific and basically, you know, quarter off their own souls and look at the world through a deterministic lens.
Mm.
It would be horrifying. Soylent Green's another good example of that. So, and if we're talking about somebody who's like a nonfiction writer, I'd probably have to say John Locke. Hatman, how about you?
Biggest influence for me, I think, really would be, and to be absolutely stereotypical, and for, you know, most listeners are probably gonna be like, yeah, called it. George Washington. Like, yeah, I'm still convinced that the guy who did the job of president first in the United States did it best, set the standard for which all future leaders should embody, I suppose.
I agree.
I mean, he had the opportunity to become a king, to take absolute power, and he chose not to. He chose to step down. And because of that, the United States has had the most long-standing peaceful transition of power, a long-standing tradition of a peaceful transition of power the world has ever seen.
Probably.
And it's crazy. All because, one man showed that you do not have to be a greedy SOB to engage in politics. You can be humble. That, and I think his farewell address needs to be like mandatory reading for anyone who ever decides to talk about politics. Just period.
I would, yeah, that's a very good pick. All right, and then Tumwater had one more. Thoughts on Rand Paul endorsing Gary Johnson?
Not surprising.
Not surprising either, but a fucking terrible idea.
Well, he's running for Senate.
I don't want I don't want Gary Johnson in the Senate.
I don't want a Democrat.
I don't want Gary Johnson anywhere near anything. The moron, he's stupid. He's high all the time, and his political, he basically is a leftist at this point, or he's become so far to the left for me anyway that I don't want him anywhere near anything. The man's insane. I think he's an idiot. Fuck Gary Johnson.
I wouldn't dare call him a leftist. Not even close.
Oh, well, the main things he pushed in his bid were left-leaning stuff. One thing he was perfectly fine with is open borders. I don't want somebody who wants open borders in the Senate.
Fair enough.
All right, and maybe I'm being a little strong there and saying he's gone way too left, but too left for me anyway.
Yeah, I have to say we all have our limits of what is too far to the left.
Yeah. All right. Koopa's Revenge asks, what is the deal with the left calling Jews like Ben Shapiro Nazis? It happens a lot. Is it projection? Well, I don't know if it's projection. It's just nobody's stopping to think about what they're saying.
No, yeah, it's the quick scare label.
Yeah.
Like you throw it at somebody, just like, calling a black person a racist.
Yeah. Or a white supremacist.
Yeah.
Like Candace Owens got called.
Yeah, it doesn't make any damn sense, but it's like they don't know any better. So yeah, of course they're going to call Jews Nazis. Most of them are anti-Semitic anyway. So it's not like they give a fuck.
They're all like, gays for Palestine. Really? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, let's try that. See how well it works out.
Yeah. All right. Matchstick asks, which state in the union is the best and why or why isn't it Georgia?
It's not Georgia.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. It's not the best I've been to. I've been to Georgia. Georgia was all right.
It's all right. I like Savannah.
Savannah's nice. I actually kind of liked Atlanta too.
I've been to Atlanta.
It's busy. That's the big thing. Very, very busy. There's always stuff going on.
I believe it.
But I'm partial to Texas of all the states I've gone to.
No, Texas. I've not been to Texas, so I can't say anything about Texas. Honestly, like I have to rep my home state. really, I don't have a reason to leave North Carolina. I love it here. I mean, even just the scenery. I can drive a couple hours one direction, get to, the mountains, Appalachian Mountains, and drive, a few hours the other direction, and I'm at the beach. I'd say it's all right. Besides that, I liked Hawaii a lot, but I think that was more because I didn't really see it as much of a state. It felt like being in another country. It had such a unique culture to it. And again, it's because, it was another country at one point. I'm still going to go with North Carolina because the South, hell yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, and yeah, my pick as of right now is Texas, but it could change in the future. All right, let's see what else we got. Brian Gilmartin says, what is it with the hatred of white Anglo-Saxons? So, you've probably heard me say that I don't like WASPs. And though that stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, which I am one, what I'm talking about is the hoity-toity motherfuckers that you find at golf clubs that secretly hate the Negro or something like that.
Yeah.
It is part of me being young and having grown up poor and having a chip on my shoulder. Because my former father-in-law was a WASP with a huge freaking ego. And he was a waspy son of a bitch, and I hated him. I hated him. And if he should ever watch this, I want to remind him, I fucked your daughter in the ass on a regular basis. And she loved it.
Oh God, you're gonna kill me.
And I did it to her the first time in the bed that she used to sleep in as a child. Fuck you. I hate that guy. But I'm a spiteful. If you think I'm spiteful now, you should have seen me 10 years ago.
Oh dear fucking God!
I was 150% rebellious heavy fucking metal. I'm tamer now than I used to be. So, but again, it's a rich versus poor thing. It's a guy like me. I have a chip on my shoulder. I always have, and because I've got more to prove than anybody else does. But that's getting into personal stuff, and I've already hopefully made everyone laugh. But the thing that needs to be remembered here is it's more or less talking about hoity-toity white rich people who are assholes. Not necessarily everybody who's a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So
it depends on who's saying it, though.
Yeah, it's all about context. If you hear me saying it, that's what I'm thinking of as like douchebags who have too much money and don't know what to do with it and are terrible to other human beings.
Yeah, because you hear anybody with a sociology background saying it, that means literally anyone who is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Yeah, you hear me saying, and it's rich assholes because, like, and I'll use my in-laws again. It's like one thing that they always love to tout is the fact that they did a missions trip to Africa 20 years prior and they self-funded. Well, that's nice and all, but what are you doing now aside from just giving your 10% at the church every Sunday? Like, you're not volunteering your time. They spent more time trying to ruin my life than they did actually doing good things. And that's generally my problem. It is the Sunday morning Christians in general that I've always had a problem with ever since I was a kid. Because I was a guy who volunteered at a nursing home. I was a guy who, I volunteered at humane societies, done sermons, and put a lot of effort into the church. And still try to talk about God as much as possible. Obviously, me saying what I just said was not a good witness on my part, but I had to get it off my chest, or else I was going to go probably start punching things and then screw my knee up again. So, needless to say, though, that's the long and short of it. And hopefully everybody laughed at that one. I know.
I did.
That was brutal. All right. So Jacqueline Inman asks, I hear that more illegal immigrants are flying into America. They said that this was about 70% of illegal immigrants. Is this true? Because I don't believe it. That doesn't sound right either. I'd have to see the statistics that they're pulling from and compare them to others. From what I have seen previously, is that most illegal immigrants come across the border illegally in one fashion or another, or they're people who are overstaying their visas.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
So if that's what they mean by flying, then maybe they're right, but that doesn't sound correct at all. I'd have to see like a Pew Research poll or something like that.
You'd have to like put them on private planes.
Yeah.
And stuff to get them over the border.
To get it, that's the only way you can really get past customs.
Yeah, or be on a train like all those kids were.
Well, even then, usually at stations there are customs agents too. So it just depends.
Yeah.
So,
that's true.
All right. Chris Jones asks thoughts on the New Mexico compound story. The more I hear about it, the more suspicious it looks. Well, they're like they all got busted. It was a bunch of like Muslim cultists or something like that.
I think it was. I think they were like training kids to shoot up schools or something.
Basically.
Like, holy fuck.
So, yeah. It doesn't really sound shifty, or it doesn't sound like it's a BS story. It sounds legit. It doesn't surprise me.
Wouldn't be surprised. No.
So, I mean, here in the United States, we've had quite a few different cults pop up. This is the first one that I can think of that was Islamic in origin, though. It's scary. Don't get me wrong.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were more of them out there too.
Yeah.
I mean, with as much as
some of the more extreme
Muslims
mosques and stuff like that. Yeah.
Ugh.
All right,
scary to think about that.
Yeah, it is. Okay, a couple more. Ryan Potter says JP has suggested that we have a fourth branch of government, a symbolic one, to take the king-like worship off the president. Thoughts? Well, that's actually technically part of what the Supreme Court does. So,
yeah.
And the Senate is supposed to do things like that too. So
a fourth symbolic branch? I don't know.
No, I don't think that would work.
No.
All respect to Dr. Peterson, but I don't think that would really help. I think that we already have the systems in place to curb that sort of thing. One thing that we just simply need to do is to remember that we do have a history in the United States of curbing somebody's power, and we need to continue to keep that tradition. And second is that we have to respect the states, and I think that's part of the problem. So,
yeah.
All right. Swordsman 100 asks, why does the Catholic Church even have a pope or the Vatican in the first place?
That goes way back to the interpretation of giving Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
Upon this rock I will build my church. That was interpreted as upon Peter, named Petra, meaning rock, he was going to build the church, the Catholic Church. There was going to be basically someone who acted as sort of a earthly successor to Jesus. Someone who would have that direct link to God the Father from earth. And that's how they got the Pope, and whatever his counterpart is for the Orthodox Church too.
Basically. Yeah, that's basically the long and short of it. I like I've said before, I'm not a fan, just because I don't like the idea. I'm not a big fan of the saints either, or that concept. Just simply because, I don't think that there should, or at least the idea of praying to saints. Why do I need to pray to some dead guy?
Yeah, no. Again, like we said before, it kind of cheapens the symbolism of tearing the veil in the temple.
Mm-hmm. And then Hardboiled Entertainment asks us the following: do we buy all the bad polls for Trump the past week? Apparently Mueller has a high approval rating for some reason. One thing, and I hate to say this, but one point that people over at the Gateway Pundit made, which it's been true for a while, but it was a good point to make, so credit where it's due. I still don't like them. Check what the participation rate is in polls of what wing. A lot of those that I saw had mostly Democrat participation. Mueller is very, very, very popular among Democrats because he is a Democrat.
Naturally.
And he is the resistance. But not the resistance with Keith Olbermann, where I am going to sit here and lie to you for 8 minutes as I use 5th grade insults against the president.
At least until he gets fired again.
Mittens, stop playing with my shoelaces. You need to go back with the rest of the cats here in Mom's basement. I am very vicious today.
Really? That was kind of light given Olbermann.
Well, so I just imagine that Keith Olbermann during the Resistance he had to have been in his basement. Or in the basement of his mom's house doing nothing for months on end until ESPN hired him again.
I don't know why anyone would bother hiring the guy.
He's crazy!
He is so crazy. How many times has he been fired now? Like, as if that wasn't enough of an indicator that he is completely fucking mad.
But he's the resistance. Ugh. I don't get it. And well, that was the one thing about Ben Affleck even parodied the guy. How bad do you have to get to where people on your own side are parodying you because of how bad you are? I am mystified. Mystified by such things. Oh, goodness. I need punch mitts. My niece and nephew want to learn boxing from me. So,
Ooh.
I'm probably going to pick some of those up next paycheck. But anyway, so that was the last question that I had. Aside from that, Hatman, how has your Labor Day weekend been so far?
Been pretty all right. I played some video games, ate some food, and got a hell of a lot of sleep. But it ain't over yet. I still got one more thing to do.
Cool.
Which is going to involve more food.
So I'm hoping to get some emails back from some art people and do a bit of writing today. Saw Dad yesterday. Dad's doing really well. So he looks like he's still... My father is ridiculous. He is in about his mid-60s almost. He still looks like he's in his 50s. And he's got cancer, and he's like, it's baby cancer. What?
Wow. Wow.
That's my father, ladies and gentlemen. You wonder why I'm such a hard ass. That's my dad.
It's baby cancer.
My father is John Wayne, apparently.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh. He's still fast, too. That's what drives me crazy. Is, like, I was showing him a few bits of techniques, and he still has quick hands. I'm like, what the hell?
God, I don't think I'll ever be able to get over that at this point. Like, you call this cancer? This ain't fucking cancer.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Crazy stuff. Alright, folks. Well, we really appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to try to get the word out to my other channel that Micah and the Hatman is here permanently. Because sadly we didn't get as many viewers as I would have liked to have seen. So I'll get the word out on my main channel as well. Post some clips up there today as well. So be on the lookout for that. But until next time, my name is Micah Curtis.
And I'm Alex Baldwin, also known as the Hatman.
Have yourself a great week, guys. We'll see you on Saturday. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.